Hello, welcome to the Trade Game channel. This is Daniel. It's January 8th, or it will be for another hour or so, and we're here to talk about trading cryptocurrency. Specifically, this video is going to be about trading Ethereum, and it's going to be about grid trading Ethereum with a bot that I have going, and we're going to do an update on how that bot is doing and also how Ethereum is doing. For anybody who happens to be interested in such things. So I started this video like I've started all of my videos so far, I believe. Well, many of my videos with us on the daily Bitcoin chart. The reason why I tend to start these videos on the daily Bitcoin chart is because this is kind of something that if you were doing any sort of swing trading, or especially definitely scalp trading, in derivatives contracts, perpetual derivative contracts, in cryptocurrency, you're gonna want to be looking at Bitcoin all the time. We kind of all people who do trade the market in cryptocurrency, we look at Bitcoin constantly because the whole market tends to, at least currently in the crypto space, the whole market tends to kind of move with Bitcoin, right? And so that being the case, price action on many other coins in the market tends to kind of follow the price action of Bitcoin. So if you're following Bitcoin and you have some general idea where it's going, it's not to say that there aren't other things that will cause price action of other coins to deviate from what Bitcoin is doing. Not at all. But if something big happens with Bitcoin, if there's a big movement, like there was a big movement to the downside over the last couple of days, most of the other big cap coins and a lot of the smaller cap coins too will also have a sudden downward movement. That's just how the market sentiment, the market psychology in crypto things happens. When crypto takes a bath like this and goes from a high, in this case a low high, down from up here. Anybody who's got a long going on Bitcoin that isn't a fairly low leverage or that isn't in massive profit is going to close that long. And possibly open up a short if you're scalping on Bitcoin, but also anybody who has got a bunch of longs going at this time, because everybody who trades cryptocurrency on in swing or in scalp or in who is just not buying in spot, or even people who trade in spot, even actually. Will, if they see that Bitcoin is beginning a crash, beginning a significant downwards break in structure from where it's at, and we were all looking at this, looking for a peak around this time. When they see Bitcoin making a real quick turn to the downside, will often sell everything, or will sell a bunch of their stuff in order to short the market, and then they will just wait for Bitcoin to swing down, and a lot of their stuff that they were holding will have also swung down. And then when they see Bitcoin at a place like this where they feel like they found a bottom, they'll just buy back in to the same stuff at spot, and they'll be able to usually buy more of those coins, which is what in the market you would call a physical short. When you own a share in a stock on the stock market, or when you own a coin in spot in the Bitcoin market, and you sell it because you believe that the market is about to crash, or you believe that asset is about to experience a really strong bearish movement, and then wait for the price to go down, and then buy back into the market with that same amount of money, or you buy back the same number of coins that you had when you sold, and then you just sort of pocket the difference in money. That's what's referred to as a short, and it's referred to as a physical short if it's just an asset that you just own outright. If you do what we do on this channel, or what I've really been showing you. I haven't been showing you a whole lot of spot stuff on here, but we're generally talking about derivatives contracts. And so when we short on here with leverage, we're not usually selling coins that we had previously bought. We are instead entering into a contract wherein the exchange or some other party sells us. We're placing sell orders at this price level, and in the contract that you're taking out with the exchange, you are selling at this level, but as per the contract, you must buy in order to close the contract at a later date, and presumably you're going to want to do that at a lower price level and thereby make profit, which does not require you to be owning Bitcoin. So even if you didn't buy Bitcoin, you weren't holding some Bitcoin in your wallet when this was at a peak, if you felt that Bitcoin was going to have a downward price action, you could take out a short contract, a derivatives contract, future derivative futures contract to sell, and then you can close the contract effectively buying back in, which on the interface, what you would be doing is placing a buy order at a lower price, and then when that contract's closed, that would be in profit for you. So it's not necessary to already own some of the asset in order to short when it comes to trading this way. Oh, although I mean, I don't know. Theoretically, I suppose you could buy and then immediately sell at this price, but that doesn't really make a whole lot. It doesn't really make a tremendous amount of sense to buy and then immediately sell. In order to do this, you just keep your money and wait and buy in at a dip. So if you're trading in spot, like you would be looking to buy right now, and then if you think the next time you think Bitcoin's at a peak, you would then sell with the intention of buying in later, and that would be a physical short. So in order to, for example, short here and then close your short in a physical short here, you necessarily would have had to have bought Bitcoin at some time before that. Whereas with leverage trading, with futures trading, you don't have to do that. You can start shorting anytime you want to. Um, right. So, anyway, looking at Bitcoin, we're talking about this. We had a strong move downwards. It might come down and retest this support line, but right now the RSI is moving down, but the price action isn't really moving down a whole lot. So maybe, perhaps, this is actually the bottom for this downwards correction. Um, but we'll have to see, because it may have set this bottom, and then it may come down and set a newer low, a lower low afterwards. We'll just kind of have to see how Bitcoin does in that regard. For at least for the time being, I'm hoping that we're going to swing back up a little bit after this, and that the RSI will get down to the bottom here without the price action going down below this point, and then start to swing back up, and hopefully we'll start setting higher lows from the bottom of this wick and starts to range up for a little bit. And the reason why I'm hoping that's the case is because it'd be good for my bots, for one thing, in general, but also because we just started a bot on Ethereum. Ethereum tends to track with Bitcoin pretty closely, right? Bitcoin is sort of the second biggest cryptocurrency aside from Bitcoin currently in the market. And somebody wants to argue ADA or or Solana or XRP or something, that you could if you wanted to, I guess. But it's Ethereum. Um, and so we recently started a 30 times leveraged bot going long on Ethereum. And as I think I talked about in a previous video, I kind of lucked out or just made a good last minute decision after making a video where I was talking about the trigger price for Ethereum, where I think that I had said or talked myself into perhaps setting a trigger price kind of like not here but like in this mid-range level here, thinking or perhaps hoping, wishful thinking, that Ethereum was going to retrace down a bit and fill in some of its fair value gaps, but not go all the way down. Whereas it instead filled in the fair value gap kind of area where I had talked about setting a trigger, and then came down and filled all of the fair value gaps entirely, and then went even further down than that. So what happened though is that I was sick and it was rather late at night when I made that video, and what I decided to do at the time, I don't think that I was expecting this correction downwards to happen until a day or maybe two afterwards. I think I just kind of said, you know what, it's no big deal if the price starts to go down tonight. I don't think it's going to necessarily go down until a day or two from now. And if it does, it'll be better to have a lower trigger price anyway. And so I just decided to not change the trigger price before going to bed. And then when I woke up next day, and then the next day, the price had gone all the way down past where I had talked about setting the trigger point, and set the original trigger price that we had set when I had put this channel right here. And so we entered the long here or around here, yeah, right around there, instead of way up here, which would have been catastrophic. The bot would have been liquidated almost immediately. Well, no, it would not have gotten liquidated immediately, but it would have probably gotten liquidated somewhere around here. So I would have lost my investment in the bot if that had happened. So instead, we got an entry point. That's still not fabulous, really amazing or anything, but we got an entry point right around here, for 30 times long. But the bots do not go into these longs with their entire margin from the beginning, and so because they're only going with a portion of their margin, their liquidation is not as much of a risk if you don't quite catch it exactly the right point. I just said, thank goodness I didn't move the trigger price up. That would have been a real bummer for me. And we came down and had a real strong push down to the downside on this day. But then went all the way back up to here. Just a nice recovery. Still closed on a red candle on this day, but then on this next day it went all the way up to here. So what that means is that the price action on this day went all the way down to here, and then the sellers got exhausted and all closed their trades, took their profit they wanted to take, and then buyers came in, started opening longs. And also just people who are buying in spot may have just decided they wanted to place orders for a chunk of change in spot here, feeling like this was a good price relatively for Ethereum, and we're just flat out buying and not opening contracts, but just flat out buying a bunch of stuff in spot. This also might have hit. If people had set limit orders, sometimes, especially people who are looking to invest in spot, will if they think there's going to be a swing down, we'll kind of decide like, okay, I think this is a good price for Ethereum. And it'll just put a limit order down here, just if in case it does go down that far, because they feel like that's a pretty reasonable price for Ethereum. Um, and then they won't look at it again for another week or two, or something, and they'll just see if they got the price afterwards, because that's a much slower style of trading, um, than scalp trading and swing trading is. So they may have been a number of people who placed spot limit orders here as well, which also would help with the buying pressure. But that also kind of slows down the wick as well on the way down. So, yeah. Well, anyway, or well, it sort of depends. Anywho, the point is though, there was enough buying pressure to push this candle all the way back up to here, and it didn't make it a green candle, but that's fine. And then on the next day, went further up to here, to the top of this wick, all in one motion, um, before going down, and then coming back up, going down to here, and then coming back up a little bit to close that wick. It looks like what happened on this day. Um, so there was a pretty significant push upwards after this wick formed on this candle, which you don't really see represented in any green candles here because it's a daily chart and that's just how the candles worked out. But that's actually a big push up to the top side. So we may end up, and then we're oscillating within this pattern. So we might kind of range downwards to here, and then hopefully, perhaps recover. Although we'll have to kind of see what happens. It looks like a lot of the momentum has kind of left out of that big move downwards. Um, what is this? This is the RSI. Yeah, the RSI has gotten starting to get on the low side for Ethereum, which is good for our bot, for our boy, because we ended our long right up in here, which is kind of not the best in Cheerios. Should not have been trying to forecast quite that far ahead for such a long leverage trade, and maybe should have just set my trigger price that like down at the bottom of this green candle, or somewhere crazy low, um, with the intention of waiting to see this set of bottom wick before entering the long trade with. But I am still relatively new at this, and there are some things that I'm still trying to clear up about how these grids are set, which I'll talk about here in a second, because this is why I have these green lines on here. So anyway, so my thinking about Ethereum right now, is, here, let me zoom out and show you what our usual indicators are looking like for Ethereum. Do that and real quick, just to have that kind of looked at and done. So on the daily chart, our oscillator uh, showed big move to the downside, and we had some movement to the upside here, kind of this green bullish area, and then it had real little green peak right here where we're reaching our top. Kind of correlates with that. A lot of these indicators and oscillators are just a little bit behind the price action. That's pretty normal. Um, and then with this big red wick here, we went from uh, light green to dark green, kind of signaling uh, bullish, or bearish rather, motion, and we're kind of right back down to the median line now. Um, that being said, however, the white crosses still have not lit up, which is typically what we kind of look for like an entry point or something if we were looking for a signal from this indicator. Um, So it's kind of a bearish look overall for this on the daily, and suggests that it might oscillate down a little bit. But at the same time, the fact that this didn't swing back up much at all, and that the white crosses are not lit up, may indicate that we're just kind of, or might suggest from the standpoint of interpreting this indicator, that we just don't have that much momentum in general behind this move in the market. Although that's again highly speculative, and no, um, really at all. And our Heikenhashi here, this is not really very conclusive. We've crossed back down across the indicator, which is usually a bearish sign. Um, we printed a couple of green candles here on the Heikenhashi, and we might this kind of right now, unless this candle wants to change to green on the Heikenhashi, suggests we might be starting another downwards leg soon. But this candle is not printed yet. It's not done on this Heikenhashi indicator. It might turn green if the price goes well. We've got a half an hour left in the day, so no, it'll probably be red on the daily candle and probably red here as well. So that'll be interesting if everybody's looking at these candles, them being red. But can have a psychological effect. But that also being said, um, the Heikenhashi indicator is probably well, I don't know if they. I would think that this would redraw, that this would redraw itself over time, or reset itself. Some of these indicators, not all of them, what will happen is if the indicators have displayed something on one day and then something changes in the future, the indicators will change where they are to reflect new data as it comes in, and some indicators will alter their past data based on what has happened since then. And so, if you take like a screenshot of it and then wait a week and look at it again, some things will have changed compared to your screenshot. Whereas other indicators do not do that. They will not change what's on the indicator, even if contradicting things or things that don't make fit in well with the indicator's algorithm happen later. And this can be significant because some indicators that people try to that look like they would be really good for scalp trading or for swing trading actually don't work at all, because the only reason why they look like they work really well and can like predict the future with an overlay is because the thing is correcting itself as it goes along to make itself retroactively more accurate than it actually is. So it's a thing in trading. Anyway, redrawing. It looks like we got about half an hour left. We're going to close on this candle with an upwards and downwards wick, which is a good thing if you're looking for the price to reverse, and that is what I would like to see. And after, yeah, I mean, it would kind of be nice if this would close. It would be good if this closed on a green wick, but it also kind of, um, I don't know, man. If I was looking at this to try and go in on a long, and I was interpreting the candles, I would have said, okay, we pushed down to here, and then we came all the way up to here, went all the way down to here, and now we're back. Not enough to get back up to where above where we started, but we're back here now, and we're kind of stalling out. So this would, to me, suggest that this is about to go back down and start trying to set like a higher low, maybe here, do some price exploration, see if it finds buyers support in the market at this price level. Um, and so I would maybe start speculating on, I could set an entry point for a long at maybe here, at like where this green line is, around $3,275 or something, to possibly be moved up a little bit over the coming days if it doesn't just go down and hit that. But I also don't know if I would necessarily place a limit order at that. I might instead just mark that level and then wait and see what the market, if wait to see what the market does, because it's possible this could print a red candle, and then over the next day just tank and go way below that entry point, at which point that would not have been a good entry point. So I might instead mark it, waiting to see the market sort of stall a little bit and gradually approach that point, and then maybe place an actual order tomorrow, or perhaps place an order in between tomorrow, depending on where the price action is. Um, which is to say, this is not really a bad thing having a candle like this. For one thing, having wicks on both sides like this suggests that we may be approaching a point of reversal in the price action. And since we just had a bunch of bearish action, if this were to reverse now, that would be good for me. That would be great because I don't want my bot to get liquidated. It's already in loss, but it's still trading, and but it's at risk of liquidation. So I'm watching it. Um, I'm also watching it and waiting to see what the new liquidation value will be. It's made not a whole lot of money so far, not as much as I would like, but it's made maybe 1 or 2% profit from its arbitrage, and hopefully we'll make a little more as time goes on. Um, um, which will at some point be used to should supposed to be used to, and what I've been seeing on this exchange is used to recalculate the liquidation value, which if you've just added 1 or 2% more margin, that is enough to move this down a little bit, and then hopefully the bot will survive long enough to then accumulate more and move it down a little bit more. Um, Although one thing that is a little tedious about this, and it may very much change how I set these grids, is that I think I must have gotten something confused um, in how these grids were set up, and I believe I now understand why. So this is a learning moment, a learning experience for me and for anyone who's watching, I guess, who believed what I previously believed. Um, from my memory of how these things worked from when I was doing more extensive spot trading. For one thing, when it comes to these bots, what I have been told and I have also found generally to be true is that having a arithmetic grid versus a geometric grid doesn't really change the behavior of the bot all that much. It's just, do you want to see the bot have a consistent percent profit between lines? Or are you okay with the percent profit being a little different at different points on the grid? Um, but for the most part, it doesn't hate the performance all that much, generally speaking. Um, at least from the ones that I've run, I don't think it doesn't usually drastically increase or decrease kind of the yield you're getting from the arbitrage. But then again, takes a little while to get much of a significant yield from just the arbitrage alone in spot. You gotta let it run for a little while. And realistically, what I sort of ended up doing was spot trading and just using the bots to oh my goodness, that just turned green. Huh. What just happened to? I was not expecting that to move that much over the next 30 minutes, although, of course, frequently, human being frequently wrong. That was a pretty sudden. See this sequence of four green candles in a row? Mm, that's interesting. Because if it can get up here, if it can get up here and set a higher high, we're down on the 5 minute time frame now. This is very small time frame. If you were trading with super high leverage, doing scalping, you might be looking at this. We don't look at it much, and doing the sort of stuff that I'm talking about on this channel. Um, But I want to see the candles in this price action because I'm interested. I didn't think it would get back up to be in the area of being a green candle. Can it hold it for a half an hour is something I'm sort of wondering about. Probably not, but um, it's interesting that it ranged up that far. Yeah, it's trying, but I kind of am skeptical that this thing is going to be able, as much as it's forming a wick right now. Kind of skeptical that this is going to be able to come up and set a higher high and get above this peak. If it did, then that would, to anybody looking at it, including me, would be an indication that this is changing direction and is going to start going up afterwards. And anybody scalp trading and looking at it in the shorter term would think the same thing and would potentially start going into a long position, or would start really seriously thinking about going into a long position. And and then when this swung back down, a bunch of people would buy in, and it would push the price action up to a higher level, and so on and so forth. Market psychology, stuff. Um, but what also could be kind of happening right around this point is that we have an area of support, an area of buying support here, where the price action hit this spot, went down, formed a wick, and then got pushed back up and hit a green candle. And so what we may be finding support now that the price action has come back down to this level where it found support not that long ago. And so what we may have just done with this is set a high low. I mean, actually, we did set a high low now relative to this peak from a little bit earlier tonight. And so if we don't, it doesn't look like we're going to set a high here. So this might actually be doing a good old standby wedge patterns. Everybody loves their wedges. Doing a wedge pattern kind of thing here, finding a bottom. Wow, that's really terrible, but it's kind of hard to set a good wedge for something that's only just maybe started doing a wedge formation. This might be kind of doing a consolidation wedge pattern after having this big downwards movement right here, in which case it's going to kind of stall and then either break down or break up or go sideways or do whatever the heck it wants. It's really not up to me what happens. But this is a left to right time reading of scale, so it will move from left to right regardless. And it could do anything literally in the future that it wants to. The market will do what it's going to do. But the way that this is typically, yeah, here we go, going down. The way that this typically goes in traditional chart analysis is when you see a pattern kind of like this forming where it goes down to a wedge. Once you see it break out of that wedge pattern, you will look to see it either go to the upside or go to the downside, following it, and the market's going to decide what it's going to do, and you can speculate on whether it's going to go up or down depending on other factors. But and there are conventions around whether the wedge is pointing up or down, but I'm not going to get into that right now. My immediate thought, well, no. This is kind of on an up wave. My immediate thought would be maybe break to the downside. Since we just got up here, the market's going to kind of want or need to set a higher low relative to this one, and it might have set it right here. But so what may happen is we may do price exploration and see if the market can, if the price action can set a higher low after this one, somewhere up here, um, if it can do that and then swing up and maybe break out, break down, um, and set another higher low here, eventually it'll stall out and terminate and probably go like that. The question is then, well, it's setting higher lows. I would I would say break to the upside, but of course I want to say break to the upside. But that is kind of what we're looking at the higher time scale. Though, hey, look at that, look green, instead of going down. Interesting. This might even be breaking out, like as I sit here watching it. So you could kind of set a trend from here going down through these three candles, right? In which case, even if you don't think of this in a wedge formation or any sort of thing, you could, for example, think of it as a channel, trading channel, or on small time scale. And if it is trading in sort of a channel going down from here after this big swing up, then it just broke out of the channel, or at the very least broke out of this line of resistance going up. This is a very bullish sign for Ethereum, actually. Makes me wonder what Bitcoin's doing on the same time scale. Yeah, very similar thing. How about that? Okay, well, that being the case, that's cool. We might see more of a move to the upside than I was thinking just right here at the last minute. The last minute's hour of the day for Ethereum, which is sort of interesting. So I was going to previously say even if the candle closes red, it'd be kind of a bummer. But also, I suggest to traders that this is about to start printing green candles after having three, like such a bearish movement. Instead, now what we're really seeing is some rapid price exploration, kind of to higher levels in this green candle, which may suggest that we may fill in some fair value gaps here and then come back down. Um, so that could be kind of interesting to see how that unfolds. Um, okay, so uh, I've marked off. I was looking at the bot detail settings earlier, and when I had a minute, and I was thinking to myself, okay, I haven't visualized or tried to visualize the actual grid patterns on a chart for one of these since very early on in the process when I was doing this. And I haven't, because I've been talking about arithmetic means in the last couple of videos. I'm like, it might be really cool to mark these out, and so I can actually see where it's been doing these arbitrages as it goes, and I can also put it in a video. So I started marking these out, and one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at these lines when I marked them out on the other side of the grid is that this for an arithmetic grid, which I thought was going to have expanding grid as you went up, these grid lines look like they're actually the same distance apart up at the top as they are at the bottom, which contradicts what I had previously thought about this method of setting grids. So I may have gotten that backwards, and it's actually the geometric grids which get bigger as they go up, which I actually think is probably um, or they get bigger as a change, which I actually think is much more likely now because it kind of makes sense to me that the profit per grid would be lower down here where the price of the asset is lower, and so the profit per grid presumably would be smaller relative to the margin you invested. Whereas at a higher price level, if the grids are the same distance apart, like the same actual price distance apart, would that mean to, no? Then yeah, because higher on these grids, the profit per grid line is higher. Um, but that's probably only because the actual dollar, no, the dollar price is going to be the same. Why is that? Man, I don't know. Maybe I have to do more research. Anyway, apparently, uh, in any event, I was incorrect in what I said the other day. The arithmetic grids, it looks like, are actually the same distance apart throughout the grid, and geometric grids must be the ones that have uneven price grids set up, um, which is kind of interesting. 'Cause I would have thought that a geometric grid or a grid where the price lines were closer together when you first started the bot would be preferable. Then again, maybe the exchange, this particular exchange, just doesn't really um, didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. Their bots are not particularly feature rich, although they're perfectly good. They're very serviceable, but it's not like the focus of the exchange that I'm currently using to run these bots is not an exchange which puts a lot of focus into its bot trading. Although they may at some point invest more in it, they do have a poll up on their website asking people what they want, where they would like additional features added next. Um, and the first choice on there was more features for the grid bots, the futures grid bots. Where was it? Well, anyway, um, I believe I encountered that on this exchange, though it might have been Blofin or it might have been both. Um, anyway, so there are a couple of things about this that I'm looking at. There's sort of it's sort of interesting. I had thought these grid lines were going to be closer together than this. I also again thought they were going to be closer together just because it was lower down on the grid. Um, and I watching this thing trade and actually having the bots, the grid lines marked on here. I'm feeling like, man, I'd like this thing to be trading more often than this, even if it is making, of course, proportionally smaller um, buys and sells in between here. Um, these are kind of wide apart. If you're doing 30 times leverage, is what I'm saying. Saying there are an awful lot of areas here where this price is oscillating up and down, and this bot could be taking profit off of these individual oscillation swings up and down. It went from here all the way down to here, and then all the way up to here, and all the way down to here, without trading, without doing any arbitrage back and forth, um, which is a chunk of volatility. Actually, really, in the market, wouldn't have made much difference like here. But when you're trading with high leverage, 30 times leverage is fairly high. And the idea is to do high frequency trading on a grid and to try to get it to this. I would think it would be trading a little more often than this. And also, just because these higher leverage bots are prone to liquidation and are trying to be careful, and evidently should have been more careful when I was looking at this one, when I first was messing with it. Um, because it is in an area where it could get liquidated here in the next day or two, and that's not ideal. That's not what I'm trying to do with these bots. I really should have waited to see it set some sort of potential low for this correction on the daily, before even probably before even picking a trigger price or setting one um, on the exchange officially. Uh, since the bot is going long, but oh well, live and learn. And this is why I don't put all of my money into one bot. I do. Currently, I'm putting like just a little bit more than the minimum necessary to actually start the bot. Um, I believe I'm allowed to do 15 of these on this exchange, and then that's the maximum per limit. So that's all that I'll be able to run. And at that point, I'll have to start closing them in order to start new ones, which I may do. But we're not to that. We're not even close to that point yet. So at least for the time being, I do think it's in my best interest to have as many of the to have more smaller bots running on different currencies with different settings is probably going to work out better than me trying to have 3 or 4 really huge bots and just focus only on those. Is my current thinking. Um, in terms of my personal portfolio strategy and grid trading. Um, this gives you some visual idea of kind of what where we're at with this. Um, when the price goes down, it would have gone down here, and the bot would have opened a small long position here, and then when it went up to here, um, and then when it came down here and crossed that same grid line, the bot would have taken some profit, closed that long that it opened here, and then when the price action got to this green line, would have opened yet another long, small with a portion of its margin here, and then opened another long with a portion of its margin here, and then opened another very small long with the portion of its leverage here. Almost opened a long here and almost got liquidated here, and then it swung up, swung up, swung up. When it went down here, it would have taken a little bit of profit and then opened another long as it came up here. And that's, at least that's what it should have been doing. That being said, the number of, I'm kind of a little surprised it hasn't been doing more arbitrages than it has, because I think it only had done like 4 the last time I looked at it. But one thing to that I have to sort of bear in mind with this is that BYDFi Bityard is not currently listed on TradingView. This is a chart for Blofin, which is another exchange that I use and like, but there doesn't seem to be BYDFi doesn't seem to be listed on trading charts. So I'm not the chart for the exchange I'm actually running the grid bot on would look a little different than this in its price action. It'd be pretty similar, but a little bit different. So, like for example, I had currently we're still at 5 trades or arbitrages anyway, since it started over here. Although, well, maybe I don't know. Yeah, no, because it would have only gone down and done 1 here, because I opened long, long, and well, yeah, 1. Well, yeah, 1 maybe. Yeah, well, 2, like 1. So like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. Okay. Yeah, no, 5 arbitrages. Um, I've got records of when all of those arbitrages occurred, but the prices they're at don't make sense on this chart, and so probably because the price action was at a different point on Blofin than it was on Bityard, the exchange that I'm actually doing the trading on. And so I could kind of mark out here where they occurred, but it's a little tricky. I was thinking of doing that earlier to kind of give you a better idea, and I might for the next video, but I'm not going to do it while we're recording. So for Ethereum, what can I even say about this, man? On the 1 hour chart, squeeze bear momentum indicator. Let's pull out our nice little overlays here. So what this is suggesting is that we may be seeing a little bit more of a downwards movement here, that we after this little push up, Okay, here, or this small adjustment at the upside here, and that's what price action is also showing me as well. We seem to have set a lower high from here, and so it makes sense that we would do price discovery down further and try to find a higher low somewhere maybe here. Um, Following that, or we may find a higher low right here and have a real steep price action upwards, which would be lovely if it's true. Um, but currently, we may be kind of looking at price discovery going down past this arbitrage line. Um, so we'll just have to kind of see. And so this would be possibly, depending on how this breaks, if I was entering into a higher leverage, more of a scalp trade, I would be interested to see in which way this breaks, and if we do actually set, uh, if it really does look like we set a higher low relative to this one. But I'd want to wait for that to happen before entering along. I think if I was trying to do a higher leverage, shorter term trade on this one. But I do hope that it does, because this bot is currently in loss, which means it's also at risk of liquidation, and I would like to see this break to the upside, even if it's temporarily, so we can squeeze out some more, just a few dollars of margin, just a few more percent of margin may really make a difference when it comes to this liquidation value being hopefully pushed down and out of our way. Um, it won't be enough anytime soon to get the bot back into profit. The price will need to swing back up um, to where the bot entered, right around here. In order for that to happen, if the bot's going to actually be in profit, so I won't be really wanting to look to close the bot, um, as I typically try not to close these bots unless they're actually at break even or in profit, at least a little bit of profit, um, unless I really think, uh, okay, there's no way it's going to get back up there, in which case I'll just pick the highest point that I can close it, um, before I think it's about to go and take a big old bath, um, nosedive into the dirt. Uh, in which case I would look to find the highest high I could reasonably find, and then just close it in a little bit of loss. Try to be a little more intentional about it, than just panicking and closing um, as soon as the bot goes in loss. Uh, Although, I mean, yeah, depending on how you looked at it, like if depending on where I had noticed that the bot had started and that it was kind of uh, not as good an entry point as I would have liked, although still way better than it could have been. My goodness. Um, I could have considered closing in just like a little bit of a loss here, in anticipation of the price action moving down quite a bit, and then just eaten that loss and restarted the bot after, like at a lower point after it finding a bottom. But yeah, it yeah, well, um, there are a lot of different ways that you can approach these things. So we may be about to make a break to the upside with Ethereum and start to see this retrace back up. That wouldn't surprise me terribly if it did. We set some pretty big fair value gaps on our way down during this correction that's happened since our last video. I marked it out with a rectangle here. This area where we have some pretty significant wide fair trade value, fair trade caps. That's what I'm trying to get out, to say there. right around in this area. Um, we previously had some before, and so people who are swing trading, people who are scalping, are also going to be seeing this, and they're going to go, "Ooh, yeah, there's a weakness in the market there. There's thinness in the order books. There, the market's going to want to pull price action back up there to satisfy those trade value gaps." In the same way we talked about the ones that were left by this bullish movement before, and how those may get filled in, which they were. There was one here; it got filled in completely, and then the smaller ones down here below this zone of consolidation also just got totally filled in as well. Um, so these gaps tend to get filled by the market. It's just a style of reading supply and demand within the market in terms of buying and selling. Um, so it's entirely possible that price exploration may move back up into this area to try and satisfy this this fair trade value gap, this hole in the order book where there was a period without price discovery here. Um, uh, and then it may move to the downside following that, or it may start to set lower highs and start to move to the upside after that. We don't know. We'll have to also kind of see what Bitcoin does. But for the purposes of our bot, I would be very pleased if it did move up in here and fill this fair trade value gap, because if it were to do that, even if the price did swing down pretty far, the bot would be doing arbitrage as it got up here to fill in the gap, and then also as it would be doing arbitrage and progressively taking profit as it came down. And so even if it did come a little bit further down and set a lower low here, as much as that wouldn't be a great sign overall, the bot would have a fair bit of time to trade and push its liquidation value down before we got to that point, and I'd be considerably less worried about it overall. Um, but yeah, okay. So that's where we look on the 4 hour chart. On the 4 hour chart, we were showing bullish signs on our oscillator with the white pluses lit up. So those are valid. That is a valid signal. Although I should point out, however, this oscillator has not changed from bright red to dark red. So technically, it has not given a buy signal yet. Although it'd be kind of odd if it didn't go to dark red pretty soon after this, and the price action has already found a bottom right here and started pushing upwards. So I mean, remember, these oscillators do tend to be a little bit behind relative to the price action, because they can only show us what's already on the chart. They cannot show us the future. They're just taking data from the charts that have been the candles that have been printed, and using it to create a display for us. Um, I can see if I can find. Oh, so yeah, so it's because it's under smooth Taikanashi. We have printed some pretty big red candles in the Heikin-Ashi, suggesting that perhaps this is the area of the deepest downwards momentum for this swing down, and so this price action might start come up and start challenging this indicator, which also, remember, is meant to sort of kind of represent like a 10 EMA line, although I don't exactly how that's calculated in this indicator, but that's what it looks like in the settings. And so this can be used as a line of support and resistance, and when it breaks, price action breaks through it, that can have significance, as it breaking downwards here was a bearish indicator, and can be taken as a signal. So the price action here may come up and challenge this and see if it hits resistance on this roughly 10 EMA line, and depending on whether or not it can break through and then find support, or just break all the way through and go back up straight away, we may see what happens here. But in any event, we should start to perhaps see these red Heikenai candles continue to be red, but to become smaller as this starts to reach its bottom, and hopefully we start an upwards green leg. Um, but we don't know. We will just have to sort of wait and see. And so that's all that I've got for you for tonight. I think really that's going to be of a major importance for Ethereum. On the 1 hour chart here, Heikinashi, kind of the same sort of thing. This is looking great on the 1 hour Heikinashi for us if we're looking for some hopefully bullish movement. We got all the way down here. Had fat candles, got a little thin, got a little fat again, and now might start printing green candles on the Heikinashi, especially since the price action has broken through across the indicator here, and kind of looks like it came down, challenged this level of support, and found support, and then has started moving to the upside. Um, that looks rather nice to me on the 1 hour time frame. Um, and also it's encouraging on the 4 hour time frame as well. And then on the daily chart, kind of not as encouraging, frankly. On the daily chart, in terms of bullish movement, I would say if you were doing scalp trading, you could start looking for long now on this. If you're doing, yeah, even a swing trade, the oscillator's not super encouraging, but you could, I don't know, in a swing trade, I might wait and see what this does. If it wants to come down and try and set another lower low and challenge this level of support again. If I was looking to start a swing long, I might want to wait and see what happens with this before setting an entry point for that. If you were trying to trade on this high a time scale, a daily time scale, if I had not set a trigger price and had it hit the trigger price, and I was just trying to set this manually while looking at it, this would be a good time to start a 30 times leverage on this Ethereum, because this is actually a pretty decent, it looks like reversal point here. And so it's really kind of a shame that I didn't disable the trigger price at all on this and just go, it needs to swing down before I can turn the bot on anyway. I'll just take the trigger off entirely and not start the bot, and then just wait and set a trigger or start it myself in another day or two. But so that's a lesson for me, I think. Try to be a little careful trying to set those trigger prices a little too far out into the future. All right. This is the Trade Game Channel. I'm Daniel. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. Help us grow our community here. God be with you. Please be good to one another, and I will talk to you later.